Now recognize the gentlelady from Florida, Ms. Cammack, for her 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to our witnesses for hanging in there with us. It's one of those crazy days where we're all in and out, so appreciate y'all. I may have missed some of this, so if this is repetitive, I apologize. But in your estimation, and I'm going to direct this to you, Mr. Irwin, in your estimation, what percentage of internet users are using web browsers that are privacy invasive?
Probably more than half the market. And by privacy invasive, I would take that to mean they don't have the baseline set of privacy protections that protect them from cross-site tracking, cookie tracking, those type of protections.
Don't worry, I won't ask you to name your competitors. I think we can draw our own assumptions on that. But more than half, it's pretty terrifying. What kind of pushback have you and your company received from website advertisers or users as your company has implemented tools that block cross-site tracking? For example, do they have a worse ad experience? Is the algorithm tweaked to downplay impressions?
Yeah. I think when we launched the initial version of our protections in 2019, we heard that users were not going to like it, and many what we call ad tech companies pushed back and essentially said the sky is going to fall. And our consumers generally are positive. This has not degraded their experience at all. Mm-hmm. Rather, they have a better experience in Firefox because we are blocking this tracking. The feedback we've gotten from ad tech providers, from advertisers, is not as positive, which is something that we would expect. And sometimes it's a positive thing when we hear negative feedback like that. So,
did you guys take a hit in terms of revenue generation from advertising?
It probably negatively impacted our revenue, but not by a significant degree.
Okay, thank you for that. And I may have missed it, but there may have been a conversation today had about the possibility of a data brokerage that is in line with compensating users and consumers for their data with their consent to sell their data. I don't know if that has been discussed today, but I would love to get your feedback on how something like that might happen. If a consumer consented to having their data sold, how would we go about compensating them for doing that? I'm not talking about a class action suit or anything, but a marketplace system where we could do that. You look very eager to answer that question, Mr. Sherman.
I think the challenge with that here is that when we talk about data brokers, we're not talking about that first-party app or website necessarily. You're giving it to use the data for a business purpose. We're talking about that company selling it to third parties. Mm-hmm. We're talking about third parties consumers often don't know exist that are selling it for profit. And so oftentimes, most of the time, I would say this is done with no consent whatsoever Absolutely. From the consumer.
Right, and I think we all acknowledge that most of the data that is sold today, it is done without their consent. I mean, there's that veil of you consent to the terms and services of this app, whatever, and therefore we do what we will with your data that we collect and sell. But shouldn't there be a way in which consumers can then earn a commission or something off of that, or something as simple as being notified when their data has been sold?
I think consumers should be made aware of this practice. Again, I think companies an app or something will throw out these insanely long privacy policies that nobody actually reads and then say that's consent. I still think we need to prohibit the sale of some kinds of data, but I agree with what you said that those terms should be made easy to read. It should take a few minutes maybe to scan through and see what kinds of data is this app collecting, is it sharing it or selling it with any third parties? That way the consumer has that information.
Absolutely.